Morning, folks. This will be a response to The Ego in Its Own, subchapter Wheels in the Head. I've been waiting to get to the part where I can truly see the connection between Stirner and Nietzsche, and I could already see it earlier in the book when Stirner said that good and right and wrong had no meaning to him. That had definitely certain echoes of Nietzsche, but I've not really gotten the connection between Stirner's book and what would later become what we know of Nietzschean thought until this subchapter. I think it's this subchapter where the master-slave dichotomy of morality that Nietzsche was most famous for, along with Will to Power and God is Dead and other famous nihilistic pose. I think this subchapter more than anything else covered really shows Stirner's view of morality in general, because the entire book is basically arguing for egoism as a moral code, but we never really get to understand. You know what? I need to retract that immediately after saying it. Egoism is not being proposed as a moral code, it's being proposed as a practical code to replace morality. And you can see why, given Stirner's view of the moral man. So the title of the chapter, Wheels in the Head, that is referring to how our mind works to form up these conceptions that excuse me, that the machinations that we build up around us, these mechanized spirits, if you will, mechanized in that they were created by us to serve a purpose for us, even though we do not realize it, even though we view these sort of spiritual matters as more conceptual and above us, that really all things related to the spirit, whether it be morality or God or humanism, as the case of atheism, is meant to control human behavior so that we do not strive for our own selfish interests or our own egoistic interests. Right? The idea is our egos are not to be regarded as the highest goal, but rather there is a moral code, the wheels spinning in our head, that's supposed to keep us operating like droids. We're following the program, the prime directive. We cannot stray from that in order to pursue our own selfish, egoistic agendas. Even liberalism, as Stirner demonstrates, through all its individualism, which again is not the same as egoism, and we see here why, because individualism, along with ideas of liberty and equality and freedom, are all ideals, are all morals that we have to follow, even if our own egoistic interests would be better served through domination and through subjugation of certain individuals. We'll probably have a lot more to say on this when we get to the third chapter of this part. But for now, I want to sort of expand upon how the master-slave dichotomy basically has this is essentially the seed that will grow towards that entire idea, because you have this dichotomy of the moral man and the immoral man, Right, the immoral man is the one who lets his higher reason and holiness drive his consciousness over his appetites, over his desires. And that's basically what drives the dividing line between the moral man and the egoist. And since this morality is being characterized as wheels in our head constantly churning to keep us on path, it would be very convenient for one to follow that certain path based. How should I describe this? I guess the simplest way to describe it is the master sets the wheels that make up the morality of the slave. Basically, the wheels in the head of the master serve to help the master subjugate the slaves. The wheels in the head of the slave serve to help the slave accept its subjugation as the moral thing. That's basically, and this is without having read anything from Nietzsche. This is just hearing the basic ideas of Nietzsche and knowing that he was reported to have taken influence from Stirner without actually crediting Stirner as an influence. You can definitely see why. Again, thinking back to the model Stirner lies out in the first chapter on a human life, given that this is supposed to be the youthful stage of human conscious, we should analyze all 4 subchapters in that light. So first you have the spirit. That's the ideal, the thing we are called to perfect. Then you have the possessed. That's us. That's our bodies, our material existence. That's the thing we use to perfect the spirit. Then you have the spook. That's the fixed idea that emanates from the spirit. That's what haunts the possessed and makes it act in a very specific manner that shuns our basic drives. And that's what leads into these wheels in heads. I have no idea what word to use for it, but you know what I mean. The moral compass that drives human behavior. So that pretty much sums up the subchapters so far. The last, the last 2 things that I want to note. First, we see self-ownership was mentioned in this subchapter. It might have been mentioned before, but I don't think I picked up as much on it before as I did here. I'm not quite sure what to say about Stirner's view of self-ownership, other than it looks like it is the antithesis of this moral man, of morality in general. So, which I find very interesting, because the only other context I know of self-ownership being used is as moral justification in ANCAP circles, in right-leaning libertarian circles. So it's interesting to hear in egoistic circles how self-ownership is not a moral argument, but is instead an egoistic argument. But he expands upon this in the second part, so we'll have to wait till we get there to truly know what he defines self-ownership to be and how he justifies it. The other thing I wanted to point to is his what he says about hierarchy. Very specific part. Yes. The same people who oppose Christianity as the basis of the state, i.e. oppose the so-called Christian state, do not tire of repeating that morality is the fundamental pillar of social life and of the state, as if the dominion of morality were not a complete dominion of the sacred, a hierarchy. Given that the next chapter is hierarchy, I'm going to keep this statement very much in mind because it looks like there's going to be a whole dominion set out, and morality will have its place in this dominion alongside a very specific set of values that will be ranked in some sort of hierarchy. At least that's how I'm yeah, that's how I'm seeing this unfold in the next chapter. So, to see if that's what happens, join me in the next talk. Alright, see you there.